For Creamer Media's Polity, I am Shannon de Rehove. Researcher and analyst Professor Raymond Suttner joins me for Suttner's View, a weekly commentary on South Africa's political scene. Welcome, Raymond.
Thank you.
Now, there is a lot of flux in the South African political scene at the moment. What does this portend for the ANC electoral strength and the future of democracy?
At the level of elections, we've seen that there have been a number of polls that indicate that the ANC is losing support, substantial support. I'm not sure. I'm not a fortune teller, so I'm not able to estimate that, whether that will prove to be true. But I think there clearly is something of a crisis within the ANC and the ANC support base. We can, in today's Mail and Guardian, for example, there's a report that in KZN, President Zuma's main area of support, they claim that there is not as unanimous support for him as people think. And one gets the impression that there's a widespread feeling that if they go into elections without Zuma, they may do better. And it may well be that some people are busy scheming at this moment to try and remove President Zuma. But I would like to suggest that the problems of the ANC will not be resolved purely by removing Jacob Zuma. However flawed Zuma may be, I think we're dealing with problems that are deeper than one individual. The ANC has a slogan, ANC lives, ANC leads. And I think we have to ask ourselves whether the ANC still has a connection, a nexus with its support base, which is substantial. And I was watching YouTube, and because I thought this is a very easy way to read about leadership, and I came across General Colin Powell from one of the Republican administrations, and he says the first essential quality of leadership is trust. And I think what has happened is that there's a breakdown of trust between the ANC leadership and the ANC support base. And that breakdown of trust relates to a number of things. It relates obviously to the high levels of corruption. Now, corruption has been there before the present period, but what we are seeing is a stark illustration of how patronage has drifted into corruption and how criminality has reached into the highest offices of the land. I mean, President Zuma came into office as a result of the suppression of corruption charges. A special committee was established to make the charges go away. It's interesting that some of the people who were on this committee have never had a history with the ANC, like Sipho Seepe. He was one of those who were involved in it. It's also interesting to see that there's a range of people who are beneficiaries of this period who are finding a way of massaging what is happening at the moment, like the Vice-Chancellor of UKZN, Makgoba, writes an article about all that the ANC has done. So when Zuma became president, it was under cloud. Hundreds of fraud charges were suppressed, and people like Wim Trengove, SC, and Billy Downer have argued very convincingly that it was not a correct decision, that there was not adequate reasons to withdraw the charges. So the one issue that people are very aware of at the moment is that at every level of government, they cannot trust their representatives, that what is supposed to go to to make a better life for all is actually being diverted to make a better life for a few. And most dramatically, this is illustrated by the Nkandla scandal. When you compare how much was spent on previous presidents with what is spent on President Zuma, it is astronomically higher. And it's quite laughable, the type of the suggestion that this is being done on a security basis. But in my view, what has severed the connection between the public, meaning the masses, and the mass base of the ANC and the leadership most severely was the Marikana massacre. Now, it's not the only case of police killing. Just in the last week, we've had 5 to 6 killings by police. But I think people were particularly shocked by this intentional killing of 34 people in Marikana and the reaction of the ANC alliance and the government. They never went to the families and commiserated. For them, they grieved that National Union of Mine Workers had been displaced as the majority union by AMCU, which the Communist Party refers to as a vigilante union. Now for them, that was the real crime that occurred at Marikana. And if you think back to the way in which leaders of the ANC have behaved in the past when people have suffered losses, they have gone to people's homes, they've gone to commiserate. And there was a demonstration of a callousness that I think shocked people. And if you think of these deaths in the Northwest, they were, first of all, the water crisis was avoidable. In Madibeng, it was reported long ago that there were these problems, and they've sat on them. This Minister of Water Affairs, when there was a water crisis in Mpumalanga, I think it is in the Gertsebanda area near Carolina, she said at one point that the water is perfectly safe to drink, and journalists said to her, "Will you drink it?" And she just giggled, as if the fate, the health, the well-being of the people for whom she bears some responsibility as a constitutional duty, that is a laughing matter. So I think that the ANC may still do very well in elections. But there is a crisis of trust, there's a crisis of confidence. People don't believe what they hear. There's a crisis of credibility. And there's almost a situation that is approaching ungovernability with outbreaks of protests on a daily basis, more or less. Not organized as a revolution would be, because one day an outbreak occurs in some place and it may fizzle out. But there's definitely a high level of discontent throughout the country.
Do you attach any significance then to the formation of EFF, considering this leadership crisis in the ANC?
So the EFF has managed to step into situations where the ANC has failed to be sensitive. For example, Marikana, Julius Malema was there. I don't know if the EFF was even founded then. Likewise, the EFF have been in the Northwest, they've been in Nkandla, built a home for someone, things like this. So that the EFF, even though they do not have a serious program, the EFF is able to evoke some resonance. What they say resonates with people. Now, I don't believe that nationalization is a practical an effective way of dealing with with all situations. It should be done on a case-by-case basis. It doesn't necessarily benefit the poor. However, when they raised that, it resonated. There are a number of other factors that I think we should return to. For example, the imminent or possible breakaway of NUMSA from COSATU is, I think, very important.
Which is a game changer.
Yeah, it's something that can affect the whole future of the ANC-led alliance. And if NUMSA does not canvass for the ANC, and presumably other people in other unions have some sympathy with NUMSA's views, it may affect the canvassing for the ANC. So I believe we are dealing with a situation where the ANC is wounded in terms of its support. What the implications are of that, we need to study, and I wouldn't like to make a pronouncement on that.
And it's not to say that the ANC won't necessarily win the election, but they'll definitely be in crisis of how much they've lost.
Well, let's say even if the ANC does win as many votes as last time, they will still have a crisis of governance because people are very dissatisfied. And the ANC has shown that even with or without electoral support, it is intent on diverting resources to themselves, to the leadership, rather than meeting people's basic needs.
Thank you very much for your insight.
Thanks very much.
That was Professor Raymond Suttner speaking about politics and elections in South Africa.